Start streaming.
Start streaming.
I'm gonna check the audio, see if we're live. If you guys could hear us in the live chat. Oh, I see Ian or Ian. I always get that confused, but I think
I
we're
think it's Ian.
Ian. Okay. I
I
know
know.
I met
I
with
had
him
lunch
like a
with him in
couple of
Toronto.
times, and I always forget Ian. Okay. I see Mike. I see Mars. I see Ian. That's good. Oh, you had lunch with him.
I did, yeah.
All right.
And
Guys,
then we,
can you guys tell
we
us in the
went to my
live chat
room
how the
later.
audio is, so we could get started?
Yeah. Da 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 da. I'm saying something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Everything
Hello,
is.
hello. Check 1 2.
All right.
Like a mic check. 1 2 1 2.
Everything.
Everyone's here. That's
Yeah,
great.
everything looks good. Okay, yeah, let's get started.
Okay. Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi. With me is Armin, who's going to very awkwardly greet you right now. Armin, say hello.
Hi.
Hi. There you go. So, yeah, we're talking. Okay, so today, there is a question that I've been thinking about a lot, and I think a lot of people are very confused about, and it's about Muslim homophobia within the Muslim community. It's very confusing to a lot of liberal Westerners. On one hand, they don't want to be seen as Islamophobic, in quotes. On the other, they don't want to be seen as homophobic. And this actually, they have to choose between one or the other, or seemingly so. So what do they do when this homophobia is coming from the Muslim community? And in context, this has actually been in the news in a big way. In the city of Birmingham, England, there have been several schools that have been dealing with growing protests almost entirely from the city's Muslim community for teaching children about LGBTQ plus relationships. And there are several schools where this has happened. Parkfield Community School is one. The other major one recently in the news is Anderton Park Primary. And over here, there are hundreds of Muslim protesters who came out, and they just did not want their little kids to be taught anything about LGBT relationships, even that they exist. So, we're going to get into this, and we're going to get into a lot of different topics over here that stem from this, because this is just sort of a symptom of a much bigger issue that is happening in these communities. And we're very fortunate and very honored to have with us a former teacher at Anderton Park Primary. She taught music there for about 5 years. And she also attended a UK school that had a significant number of Muslim girls in it, and she has a lot of insights to share with us. So, Sophia Johnson, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we are too. So, just to start really quick with this topic, you are both, you've lived in the UK, right? And you also live in the US now. I think you're in Austin now. So what was, you're seeing everything that's happening at Anderton Park. I think the most recent development is that the courts have ruled that these protests are a form of harassment, and they've created an exclusion zone around the school, which is a good thing.
When did that happen? That's great.
Just a couple of days ago, just 2 days ago.
2 days ago. Wow.
So, yeah. But there is this sort of issue in the UK, especially we've seen with, people, with the Rotherham case, where people they don't want to point out problems in the Muslim community. If evangelical Christians are doing it, if other fundamentalists or religious people, Scientologists, whatever, are doing it, then we can criticize it openly. But when the exact same thing happens in the Muslim community, people are very apologetic and shy about it. So, what was your experience like teaching over there, and how do you view these protests that you're seeing happen?
My experience at that particular school, I taught I was a peripatetic, is the word we use, peripatetic guitar teacher. So I actually taught in a range of schools all across Birmingham, and Anderton Park, and it's actually in Spark Hill, and I grew up in Moseley, which is like the next little suburb over. I had friends who, when I was a kid, I knew people that went to Anderton Park Primary. It was a lovely school in many ways, and I really enjoyed teaching there. I was part of a program that aimed to give all 30 kids in a class, all 30 of them, a guitar for a year to take home and practice with. And we gave guitar lessons where there was 2 teachers, and we taught all 30 kids at once. So it was a pretty
wow, I would have liked to be there.
it was actually really fun, but we did run into some issues, the most significant one of which being that a little girl brought her guitar back to me and said that her dad wouldn't allow her to have the guitar in the house at all, and that because guitar is for prostitutes, which I remember just being absolutely staggered at the time, just like, I don't even know what to say to this.
So
I also
she told you this? Like, she said that my dad said guitar.
So her dad has obviously
Muslim
said
girl?
that her a little well, yeah, and there weren't Muslim girls there without hijabs on, and we were age 7. They're age 7, and so I guess with this protest, which is supposed to be about protecting, I feel like the protesters have really hijacked well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is that I think this is based on a misunderstanding. There are no LGBT lessons. Like, this isn't, they're calling for something to stop, which isn't actually happening. There's no, there's definitely no mention of gay sex. There's none of that.
There should be.
Well, I don't know. It's 7-year-old.
For 7-year-old. Anyway, go on.
But, so there's that. That's
one
like
step at a time, Armin. One step. Increments. Go on.
But I think the objection is to some books, and one of the books I think is about 2 male penguins and an egg, and the other book is about a boy that wants to dress up as a princess. That's what this is. So how we've ended up that the protesters are saying that kids are being taught like gay, I don't know, is being promoted. It's like saying that what they're talking about is equality, and they're not promoting black people or disabled people, or like it's just about saying this exists in the world,
right.
Which I don't think is a contentious point.
Yeah.
But
but there should be I mean, even if they were promoting, I wouldn't see a problem with them promoting.
No, but I think right now the problem is we're at again, like the incremental thing. We're at the point. Let's say, forget about the promoting thing. We're at the point where there are kids who are going to school. These kids are going to grow up. They're going to live in a society. They're going to meet other people who have 2 mothers. They have 2 fathers. They're and they. You have to tell them that exists. You have to tell them that there's different forms of family, because it's a reality, whether you agree with it or not. It's not. I mean, that's not promoting a gay agenda.
Mm-hmm.
To say that the gay agenda, by the way,
but
I don't know that either.
But,
but I'm quoting like the people who say it. And go on, Armin.
No, like, here's the level of sexuality that these kids are exposed to is the same. I think it would be the same level of sexuality that you are exposed to when you see like this Sleeping Beauty, right? Or like when the prince kisses the princess, or even if they're falling in love, or the prince is like fighting a dragon for the princess. The kids can know that the prince is attracted to the princess, like, or the princess is like falling in love for the prince. Nobody has a problem with that. So that's
Snow White is a big problem, because she was sleeping.
I don't know.
And then she was like knocked out, and then he came and he just kissed her out of the blue.
Ellie, can you just wait for me to make my point?
Okay.
Okay, you're ruining, because the thing is that my point is that these people that have a problem with, I mean, the problem that you're addressing is from the woke side. The people on this side don't really have an issue with princes and princesses falling in love and stuff like that, and that's the level of sexuality that we're talking about, right? The level of sexuality, like, if you don't have an issue that your kid sees that the princess is falling in love with the prince, or that they're kissing, or that they're getting married, that same level of sexuality could be 2 princes, two boy princes, and 2 princesses, right? Mm-hmm. And that would be the same level of sexuality. There's nothing extra sexual about that, right? If two girls are holding hands or two girls are getting married, what's so confusing about that? If they're confused about that, then why are they not confused about stories where men and women are getting married in there? Right?
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, and that is what you've just described is the level of an LGBTQ plus agenda that is being promoted at this. That's it. Like
Right.
just
Penguins.
that this exists in the world.
Yeah.
That is the message. This exists.
Which
Like, it's
imagine
not
if
even-
you were gay and all the stories that you read saw like men falling in love with women and vice versa. You will grow up thinking like, what the hell's wrong with me? So if out of 100 stories, one of them was like, hey, two girls falling in love with each other, you're like, oh, that's like me. Like you would feel, you will go through your life without having not to go through a lot of the shame, a lot of the disgust, a lot of the, being quiet about your identity, a lot of the time thinking that there's something wrong. All of that would be taken away from you just by having one story that like, hey, maybe this is okay, maybe this is normal. I mean, that's such a beautiful gift to give to a child, to not to have to go through all that trauma.
And a lot of this is not, I mean, we're talking about sexuality, but this is not about sexuality at all.
No.
A lot of it. It's just about like, okay, no, supposing you have a completely benign story. This is the problem. You have a completely benign story, right, about anything else. And it's just that the characters in the story happen to be two men. Instead of mommy and daddy, you've got daddy and daddy, and that's it. Otherwise, the story is completely like anything else.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it is sexuality,
with.
but it's the level of sexuality that we tolerate among straight stories, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
well, I definitely think that by protesting in this way, they've had the opposite effect. If you didn't want your kids to know about gay stuff, like, well, they all know now. But that's kind of the point I feel like about this whole thing, is that everything about it is like backwards.
Right.
The intolerant people are standing at the school gates yelling about that they are being oppressed. Everything just seems to have, and I'm really glad that we did just get that the ruling about stopping them from assembling outside the school, so that these kids can go to school. Because what this is, this is about education and what kids are being educated. Well, all of this is just stopping education, just like taking the guitar off the girl, saying she can't do it. That is actually a hindrance to education. And I, just come from this at a point of, as a teacher, I've taught guitar since I was 18. I love teaching guitar. I particularly, as a female lead guitar player, like teaching I want to give girls confidence to be like, this is not just for boys, and to be like age 7, take it out of the girl's hand and be like, you can't have this. This is not open to you. To me, that's an infringement of her right to learn. And the protesters are taking a moral high ground that they have in my opinion, no right to take, because they are the people continually putting impediments to their children's learning, and now they're suddenly all concerned about what it is. You don't get to pick and to me, it's logically inconsistent to get to pick and choose like that.
What about the people that say like, listen, these are parents have the right to decide what their kids are exposed to, not the school, not the government?
Well, I just don't think that's not what the law says, is it?
Homeschool them.
Homeschool, yeah. Don't send them to school then if you really feel that strongly. But I think that, I would, if it was up to me, I don't think religious schools should be allowed at all.
Oh, I
feel like it's brainwashing.
The response I would give to somebody that would say that, I would think that actually parents are the worst people to decide what's good for their child. Like I would trust institutions that have done a lot of research, lot of there's a lot of science behind what's good to teach you. Like I think a lot of people think that just because something came out of you, that means that you own it. I don't think that. I mean, these are little human beings that have rights, and if the parents are not looking after them properly or educating them properly, a lot of people think I see the government having to should have a limited role. But I think that children, especially if the parents are not doing a good job, that the government definitely have to come and step in.
That is legally how it is. So legally,
Yeah.
what happens is, and we went through this in bioethics in medical school, and you learn about this, is that if there's parents who come in and their child needs life-saving treatment, and they say, no, we're just going to give them some willow bark or some crap like that, then you are legally allowed to take those kids away from the parents, and the state is allowed to give permission to administer that life-saving treatment. So,
and it's a moral law, I think, too, because if its government's supposed to take care of its citizens, I think the main citizens that it needs to protect are the ones that can't protect themselves, which includes children, especially the ones that are not being looked after properly by the people that they trust the most. Right.
I mean, kids before the age of 18, at least in the U.S. and I think in Canada too, are actually under the state's guardianship. The state has precedence. I mean, parents, often they're both. the parents have as much authority that people usually stay out of the way. But when you get to a point where you're causing any kind of sort of irreversible harm, then the state does get to step in, and nothing can stop them. So,
right.
I guess the medical situation is a lot. More that's about life and death, but getting women, I feel really passionate about women being educated, and we sent, Malala came to Birmingham to be educated. We have a fantastic school system. We have, I was proud to be a teacher. I was proud to be part of an initiative trying to make money not an issue. Kids should have instruments, they should have access to learning, and that it's not life or death. But if you get a whole generations of people who are not being educated, to me that is a big, I'm not saying they're not being educated, but Britain is, we have laws in place to protect children so that they can get access to education, but this big muddy grey area where religion and particularly Islam is concerned, I know there is and has been a hesitancy. When I got given that guitar back, I didn't even dare tell anyone. I just said, okay, well, you don't have to take it home, then you can leave it at school. She was the one kid that had to leave the guitar in school. Thankfully her dad didn't stop her doing the music lessons. She still got to participate, but she couldn't go home and practice, and that it just got to me. The opportunities that I have had living in Birmingham with the wonderful education system, I know are being denied to other girls, and then the people that are trying to deny those rights to girls are now standing outside school gates hollering that they're being oppressed. To me, it makes no sense.
Has Malala has Malala Yousafzai, because she is all about all girls getting educated. I mean, what you're talking about, and by the way, it's so well said, and what you're saying is so well articulated. I feel like I want to take clips of what you're saying and put them out there. We probably will. But
shout out to Hannah, because she does that for us.
Yeah, Hannah. Just quick shout out to Hannah, Anna, and Lotus. All of you guys are amazing. This is our background staff that helps us produce a podcast. Anyway, but so you're talking about how you want girls to be educated. That is what Malala Yousafzai won the Nobel Prize for. Has she? And considering that she was in Birmingham, has she commented on this? I would hope she has.
Not that I've seen, but that doesn't mean that she hasn't. I looked up today a bunch of. Weirdly, Katie Hopkins has got involved. Did you see? You know who
she's
she
on
is?
The wrong side. Okay, so.
But she went. But this is where it all comes to me. Is comes full circle. Katie, I hate Islam Hopkins, is now meeting with Shaquille. What's his name? Afsar, and they agree about this. What?
Well, because they're right. Because this is what. Okay, this is why I could never understand the marriage between the liberals and Islam. Because Islam is right wing, and this is something that people have predicted for a very long time. And first, people were confused. What the hell? Why are liberals getting in bed with Islam? This is a right wing ideology. and more liberals are realizing that okay, this is goes against all our values, and more right-wing people are realizing that there's stuff about Islam that they like. Because I follow a lot of right-wing content, and they are falling in love with Islam, and they're becoming allies with a lot of.
Okay, so I had to
a genuine lefty, genuine feminist, genuine everything gets called right-wing because I don't want to associate with right-wing ideology. How did we get to this point?
I know, join the club. And that's I guess.
Yeah, you guys
must
deal a lot more with this than I do on a limited scale.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, you're gonna catch up, and it won't be a bad thing. So this is actually the next thing I wanted to talk about, the Katie Hopkins. So I was looking at a picture of Katie Hopkins standing with the people leading these anti-gay protests. Right, and she has gone. She is totally anti-Muslim immigration, anti-everything, and now she has found common ground with these Islamic conservatives who are protesting LGBT, teaching to kids' schools, and she's in alignment with them.
Yeah, similar thing, we hate gays, you hate gays. Let's get together and hate gays together.
So similar thing actually happened where I'm sitting in Ontario. Okay, so in Ontario a few years ago, and still a long time, there were these similar huge protests because there was a sex ed curriculum that was proposed by, and this isn't just a primary kids, it's a sex ed curriculum that would be inclusive of LGBTQ relationships, right? Again, nothing overtly sexual, just that they exist. Okay, and this is how it happens. And a lot of Muslim people came out and they protested it. One of them, one of the things that was around was a book, and this is a book by someone who is a not huge fan of Armin and I, Ina and Ice Mangoes on Twitter. She doesn't love us, but this is one of the amazing things she did was she wrote this children's book called My Chacha's Gay, which is about a Pakistani family where the uncle was gay. And they were considering using this book in the schools, and all these Muslim parents came and they started protesting. And now the conservative government in Ontario with Doug Ford is doing the same thing. They're trying to cut this stuff out of the sex ed curriculum, and they're completely in alignment with the Islamic fundamentalists and the conservatives. So, it is pretty amazing.
But in a way, I am glad that this is all coming to a head, because this has been brewing for a long time. And Birmingham, I feel so lucky to have had the incredibly liberal upbringing that I had. I mean, Birmingham is a wonderful multicultural city, and we have a huge pride. And this year's Pride, I think, is going to be massive. And I've already seen lots of Muslims and ex-Muslims that are going to go to Pride to show their solidarity, about this cause. But if it was going to happen anywhere, I can see it happening in Birmingham. And I'm really glad that the head of the school has just she's not
backing down,
bowing to any. She won't back down. She's taken a hard stance and she's just sticking to it. And I'm so glad to see that, because that's not what I've seen kind of in the past. And that's how you get to crazy situations like Rotherham, with people just so afraid of the racism smear and the Islamophobia smear, that what happens is kids get denied, or kids get abused, or I'm really proud of the head of Anderton Park, and I think she should stick to her guns.
But what do you think is going to happen in the long term? Because we have been waiting for something like this for a very long time, because we knew something like this happened, because we knew that Islam and the liberal ideology is not compatible, and we also knew neither Islam is going to be able to give an inch, and liberal community is not going to also be able to give an inch. They're not going to accept homophobia, and Islam will never be gay friendly. Okay, so we knew that So we knew that at some point these two are going to clash, and we just don't know. We didn't know how it's going to look, what it's going to look like, and who's going to win. But in the long run, do you think I can't? I mean, it looks like maybe the liberal side will win, but Islam is very powerful. I don't know.
Yeah, and England has some worrying laws about hate speech. To me, as a free speech person, and I would be scared that the liberals would lose this fight. But it appears not to be, with what's just happened with
2 days ago.
this injunction.
Yeah.
That is a positive step. But I mean, I don't know how this is a huge, as you said, like this problem is like brewing and is going to
Become
and
bigger.
this is maybe the first beginning of these two things clashing. And I mean, if liberals are really committed to their principles of being liberal and being tolerant, it's not the gays that are saying, death to Muslims, and that kind of is like I don't know, to me it seems like eventually the liberal people will have to fall in with the but will they think about it?
Who
My
should
problem is
fall in?
I think people don't think about it hard enough. The liberals will have to kind of, if you're really committed to your liberal principles, I feel like you'd have to side with LGBTQ over Islam on this. But
Yeah.
the fear is so of, I mean, and they've got signs outside the school saying, you say we're homophobic, we say you're Islamophobic, and so there's those two phobic things.
Yeah, but gay people are not killing Muslims. They're not throwing Muslims off rooftops.
That's kind of what I was trying to articulate.
Yeah, they're not executing them and hanging. Gay people, when you're choosing,
they really are live and let live.
Right. If you want to choose, if you have a choice, to all my liberal lefty allies out there, and I'm very lefty, so if you're out there, just if you don't think of this as a choice between quote unquote Islamophobia and homophobia, because there is no gay person out there who's going out and saying that I want to kill Muslims. There's no state out there where gay people are saying we have to hang Muslims from cranes to execute them. Like, being Muslim is not a punishment. In fact, we have people like gay public intellectuals in quotes, like Glenn Greenwald and everything, who come out and they defend Muslims, and Muslims' rights all the time. It's just
so this is what's happening.
It's a false choice.
What's happening here is just the beginning of I think what's going to be a much bigger and a global battle, because again, this is where the union between the left and Islam is going to end. This whole LGBT thing is where the battle line is going to be drawn. And neither side is willing to give in to the other side on this one at all, right? And this is something and this is why what I have done in my activism to show how big of a battle this is going to be, and this is when I got the most of my death threats, is when we did stuff like put the Kaaba in a gay rainbow, drapes. When we had the gay Kaaba, that went viral, and that got me the most death threats I've ever received in my life. I have burned the Quran, and I haven't received 1% of the death threats than the day when I went out in gay pride parade and I had the Allah is gay sign. And basically the whole point of the gay Kaaba and the Allah is gay sign was to show what a major reaction you're going to get to this. This is going to be a fierce battle between the left and Islam, and it's only going to get bigger. We're only seeing the first sign of it here in Birmingham.
I kind of feel like bring it on. Like it's time. We need to have this with this. People like Jimmy Bangash, who I've heard on the podcast, and I hope that more gay Muslims and gay ex-Muslims, that those are the voices I feel like we need to hear, and they hopefully will be empowered to speak up a bit more. I mean, it's interesting. I did read that there's a lot of people at Anderton Park, parents who are actually in full support of the school's stance, but they don't want to go out and protest because they're kind of intimidated by the religious and they're worried about appearing to support the school. I think, obviously the squeaky, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or whatever. Like, the people that are shouting the loudest are dominating. But I think there is a lot of support in for the school taking this stance and just saying no. And the head said some interesting things, like that she doesn't think if any school should ever change its agenda because there are parents outside screaming at the school gates. And she said,
That's
and
great.
I'm that
I'm
that is
impressed.
really encouraging.
Some good news
Yeah.
from the UK for some change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which it's not like I'm used to that, especially with everything that's going on at the moment. It's a bloody
Yeah.
disaster on all fronts.
So we'll also get to that, and I think and another thing, Jimmy Bangash, if you're listening, and if I've reached out to you, we'd like to have you back on to talk about this.
Yeah.
But
do you think it's against the? So what is the court? Because this is very new. Like it happened 2 days ago. The court said that these protests are harassment. Like some people may say, well, that's against free speech. Muslims, even if you think that the school shouldn't give in, and the school should stand its ground, the protests should still be allowed because that's free speech. So what
I think they're saying the protests are allowed. You just can't do it outside the gates of the school and stop the kids being able to come in and out of the school freely.
Exactly.
I think
Right.
that would be, and which I kind of feel like I agree with. Like, yeah, they obviously they should be allowed to protest, but my whole thing is this, like, if it's stopping kids from learning and they had to close the school, they've had to, and with all that going on, how is the kids supposed to like focus on schoolwork? So I think that's the point they've got to, and there's going to be another hearing. This isn't the end of it. This is like a temporary thing.
But it drives me insane. This is not a free speech issue. This is like the problem with the other side. It is not a free speech issue because nobody's free speech is being oppressed. I mean, these people it's like the Westboro Baptist Church ruling from the Supreme Court.
Well, it would have been if they weren't allowed to protest, but it's good that they're allowed to protest.
They're allowed to protest,
okay,
and they should be, and nobody's not stopping them from protesting. There's an exclusion zone. They just can't go right up to the school and prevent and disrupt it.
But I want them to, because I want the kid. Like, this is a good thing. The kids are like might get more curious. I
don't. I think the kids will be curious enough about knowing what's going on, and they have to live with these parents. And so it's just, I don't think that that's necessary.
Yeah.
But Sophia, I wanted to talk about how moving on from this. So not only did you teach at this school, but you also attended school in Birmingham. You attended, can I say the name of the school?
Sure.
Swanshurst?
Yeah.
Yeah, Swanshurst. So this was, at the time, it was the biggest all-girl comprehensive school in Europe, with about 300 girls in each year, and a total of about 600 girls overall. And
1,600.
1,600, you're right. Yeah, my math is,
about as good as mine.
So you said that up to half, it was a rough estimate, up to half of the girls there were also children from Muslim families, and the age groups were like 12, 13, 14, 15, around that age. And you had some amazing stories that you told me. So what was that experience like?
So I went to a very liberal hippy dippy primary school, so that's from like 4 to 11, and I am the child of two very liberal people. I was not christened. I've literally basically had no contact with religion at all. It just wasn't part of my life. We sang at school, we sang Yellow Submarine in assembly, and like it just, we had Christmas, and I knew we did religious education. I remember going to a Sikh temple and a mosque, but it was just like it was just part of like everything else I was learning. And then people believe this, but I never had to read any of the book. I never had to do anything. So when I went at age 11, went to Swanshurst, it was my first like real contact with religious people, really.
Muslims mostly.
Muslims, and I was shocked and kind of horrified. I was, because there were, I was told straight away, like by little hijabi girls, like they weren't going to do any work at school because because when they were 16 they were going to an arranged marriage in Pakistan anyway, so there's just no point doing any work. Like, and I was just staggered, like, what do you mean? Like, I already had plans to go to university age 11. I knew that I wanted to like educate. Brought up in a liberal home, books were all around. I was encouraged to read, I was encouraged to ask questions, and then I came up in secondary school, just against like, no, you can't play the guitar. No, I'm not allowed to have music lessons. I'm not allowed to have a musical instrument. And I couldn't believe it. And then, I mean, not to say that all the there was also like a lot of very hardworking Muslim girls who were already on a route to like being a doctor or they definitely seemed, and they were obviously from more liberal Islamic homes as opposed to then there was, and a lot of them didn't wear hijabs. A lot of the girls
you could
that
tell.
were, I mean, probably the worst thing I can remember is definitely in year 9, so we would have been 13, 14, Shabna disappeared to an arranged marriage in Pakistan and never came back.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you said that you remember at least 2 girls disappearing.
And there's it was, and it was just accepted. It was just like, what happened? Why is she not coming to school anymore? Oh, arranged marriage, Pakistan. Gone to
How old was
Pakistan,
she?
marry a cousin in Pakistan.
Yeah.
13, 14. I hadn't even kissed a boy yet. I was like, I was still, I was terrified. To me, and then the Islamophobia, when I found out that in this religion I would not be allowed to wear what I want, I would not be allowed to be friends with who I wanted, I would not be allowed to pursue my whole life dream. I'm going to be a guitar player, I'm going to be a songwriter, that's what I'm doing. And to know that there were, people sitting next to me in class, we lived in the same city, yet I had this world of opportunities, and she couldn't do any of that. She already knew her life plan was, as soon as she is not legally required to go to school anymore, or even before then, she would be taken into and have an arranged marriage.
Why were you terrified? It's very interesting that you must be a person with a lot of sympathy, because a lot of people just observe it and they're like, meh. But you're like putting yourself in their position and you're scared, like you're like you're terrified. Like why did that impact you so much?
I'm not I just couldn't believe.
Right.
Like shock. I think shock, and because my dad and mum were just so liberal and supportive of every endeavor that I wanted to pursue, and my dad's a musician. When I said to Dad age 7, which I think was pretty much the result of having watched Back to the Future and seen the Johnny Be Good mime that Michael J. Fox says, I was like, finally, Dad, I want, and he made me have classical guitar lessons, which I wasn't impressed with, but I'm very glad he did that now. But, I said, I want to do this, and my dad made that available to me. I also remember being young and being like, I remember telling my dad that I was really worried about how big the universe was when I found out and how small I was. And my dad was like, well, you and the rest of humanity, Sophie, this is what keeps philosophers awake at night. And he got me books on philosophy, and if I came to my parents with questions, they would just provide stuff for me. And what I was being told at school is that these girls did not have that. Their parents did not provide opportunities for learning for them. And then what really got to me was that, and you can't even have an opinion about that. If you say anything, you're racist.
They told you that. Who told you that?
The girls at school, and it was just the general feat. Even now, I was nervous to come onto this podcast because I'm so scared that somebody's going to take something. I want to give massive big qualifications. I obviously know that anti-Muslim bigotry completely exists. I watched it with my own eyes. I had white friends that would call people Pakis. I've never used that word as a kid. I never use it now. But I'm terrified of the racism that somebody's going to take what I say and say I'm attacking Muslims.
Yeah.
Did you say anything when you were in school to anybody about your opinions?
No. No, and I didn't even tell my parents.
Why?
So,
I
Sophia,
knew. I knew that I couldn't, because I don't know I knew.
And what year was this? How many years ago was this?
It will have been 1993.
So even then, the atmosphere of fear was there for people not to be able to talk, and now it's worse, right? So we have created a situation in the UK right now where people have opinions and they're just not talking about it because they're afraid of the consequences.
I know lots of white British women who have really strong opinions about the hijab and about the hijab being, you know, in primary schools and but they will not. I know they wouldn't ever talk about it publicly because of the fear of, even though the result of that is, to me, the reason that I'm refusing to be silenced, although I haven't been posting on my Facebook. I took a lot of flack, which I know you want to come into talking about this. My experience as a British person with Islam is so different, and if I'd say anything about Islam here, it's just like Trump, Muslim ban, you agree with that? It's like, no, like that's so far from the position that I hold. So I've been self-censoring, but the reason that I definitely want to speak out is because the people that really end up suffering are little Muslim girls and Muslims in general. I mean, this is, to me, just such obvious oppression. Like, if, as you said, I when I moved to America, suddenly, like, if I got pregnant here, I don't know if I'd be able to get an abortion. Like, that is shocking to me. Like, I can't, but that's not the reality I grew up with. That's like what I'm dealing with now. What I grew up with was what Islam was doing to Muslims. To me, I didn't see people.
Would you get into legal trouble if you?
I would have been worried about school. Yeah, I mean, we're at a point now, which, I mean, and maybe this is right, but when in my training for teaching guitar, I was told I'm not allowed to touch a kid. I'd have it to move their finger on the neck, or I have to say, is it okay if I touch your, hands? Can I move your finger? I mean, goodness, what they would have, if they'd said no, it would have been like, okay.
Yeah.
No, but if you said something,
it sounds like
just a second, Ali, if you said anything against Muslim Islam, for example, is there would you get into any legal trouble?
In England, I would have been scared of that. Yeah.
So okay, and you think the government is basically by doing this, the government is encouraging oppression of Muslim kids by doing so?
I think okay. So. If we're at a point where nobody can speak out about this, right, then
okay.
Or just if you do, and this is, I guess.
Sorry, Ali.
In answer to your question, like, what should we do about homophobia and Islamophobia? So the one thing I don't know, but I think we should take the narrative back. Why can't people like me talk about it? Like, but I've always felt like, and I almost in my email to Ali when we started talking about me coming on this show, I was like, I don't know if I should even say anything. I'm worried about, a white woman talking about this, and like, this cultural sensitivity, but I just have to try and keep reminding myself that this isn't about culture. This is about a set of ideas that I can see and know from my own experience is massively impacting the lives of people around me, and especially when I was growing up. And that is reality. Even if I'd never said about it, and I've certainly started talking about it a lot more now, I definitely, the fear of just being, people lose their careers and people lose friends. I mean, I've already lost friends here, or I think been totally misrepresented, and I had to do a lot of work with people to get them to understand that I am not, this isn't about racism. This isn't about not liking brown people. This is about actually me saying, be caring about brown people as much as I care about white people. If we can say, like, religion is doing terrible things in America, preventing stem cell research, stopping women get access to abortions, and that, why can't I say, and in England, because this is what I've experienced, Islam is stopping kids learning in some the extreme situations. It is stopping kids learning, and these protests are outside this school. All it's doing is just stopping kids learning over a non-issue, over a misunderstanding, and that. So people like Katie Hopkins and Shaquille Afsar are like in the news, and somebody like Jimmy Bangash, who I think would have a really good, interesting perspective on this. He's not out there, but they will report if he takes an Allah is gay sign somewhere. They'll report about that, But and I just feel like people aren't, the left aren't interested in listening to what I've got to say about this, or
and I want to point out
need
like
that
what
to change.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is compassion for Muslim girls or girls raised in Muslim families. If you didn't care about them, you wouldn't have to say anything. All
Yeah.
you have to do is just say, I've got my guitar, I'm doing my thing, I'm going to pursue my career, I'm going to go to college, go off and get arranged
Yeah.
marriage. That's your culture, whatever, do your own thing. That's what the regressive leftists do. They don't care. They don't, like, if I go around and I put my wife and daughter in head to toe burqas and I walk around the streets of Toronto, the sort of super like pseudo liberal types are going to walk around. They'll be like, hey, listen, that's his culture, we got to respect it. They like that, they chose that for themselves. And then on the other hand, if there's a white guy, right, with ginger hair and ginger beard and freckles who walks around doing the same thing with his white daughter and all covered up, they will lose their shit because there's a different standard. There's and that is what the bigotry is. So what you're doing, you have compassion and you have empathy.
Well, that's what I definitely, logical consistency. If I don't take this shit off white religions, why do I have to take it off a brown religion? It's just all bullshit. Like, across the board, I don't think religion should be made any concessions to. It should not be part of public policy. It should not be part of education. And Islam doesn't get a pass. Why does Islam get a pass?
So you've got Katie Hopkins, kind of allying with these guys and having photo ops with the Muslim protesters against LGBT. You've got Doug Ford here in Ontario, implementing the same kind of sex ed curriculum changes that all of the sort of this homophobic, Islamic conservative parents wanted for the kids. And, you have these alliances happening. And whenever you talk about things, you get blamed Trump, Muslim ban, all of this. How much has you trying to speak out as a white liberal atheist against all religions, including Islam, how much has that been impacted by the rise of this sort of right-wing thing, like especially in terms of liberals taking you seriously?
Yeah, well, it definitely, it hasn't helped. I don't want to be associated with right-wing people, but they're dominating the narrative about this because the left just won't even touch it. And I seem to spend all my time, if I ever talk about this, just trying to distance myself the whole time. And I feel like it's like it's to do with other people not really understanding the complexity of this issue and what is actually even going on here, that this weird unholy alliance between the liberal left and the brown right, like, it's so logically inconsistent to me and so obvious to me that I find it hard to even understand that people don't understand that. They can't see what's going on.
Isn't that the good side effect of this whole mess, is that now maybe we could win some of the liberals back? I mean, a lot of them are on our side already, but we could win. I mean, a lot of people are having a "we told you so" dance right now, with going to the left, to a lot of people on the left, and a lot of people on the left are realizing that this is what Islam is, I guess.
Yeah, they have to. I agree that, like I said before, I'm kind of glad that this is all happening, because these people that are claiming to be feminists and then supporting the hijab and claiming to be pro LGBT, but saying it's fine for there to be Islamic homophobia. Right. Their logical instinct, they must be confronted with it, because, and as well, I have to hope that my fellow liberals, that when they are confronted with it, will kind of see sense. I think a lot of this is because they haven't gone far enough into the issue to even realize really what's happening. And I hope that with more light being shone on this issue and more people being forced to think about it and really forced to address this, that hopefully some more liberals will come back.
Are you optimistic? Are you both of you? Are you optimistic about the future of UK or pessimistic?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I'm both.
So I
feel like it could go either way.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, Armin, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I was trying to say. Like 1993, when you were in school and you couldn't say these things, right? today we're talking about it you're talking about it on a podcast to like an ex-Muslim Iranian and an ex-Muslim Pakistani guy who grew up in Saudi Arabia. There is the Rotherham scandal that was going on for years, thousands of girls unsaid, unspoken of, even though people in law enforcement knew about it. Now there's mass sexual abuse of women and of girls, of young girls, and now it has become the news. The courts have acted on this. So they have come out and they've said, okay, we're going to put an exclusion zone. These parents are harassing them. This conversation is happening, and I got to tell you, like privately, a lot of leftists I know, they say exactly what you do. Like they said, I haven't.
Why
said
privately though? Why privately?
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Because we're still working to shelve this whole fear thing that's like.
And she just mentioned it. Sophia just mentioned it. She just talked about how she was afraid to talk about this and even nervous coming on the podcast because this is
there's safety in numbers though. Well,
that is actually why I found you guys. Sure. Was just after I moved to America, and I can't remember what came up. It was before the Muslim ban, but I talked to somebody here, a liberal friend of mine, very liberal guy. I mentioned Ayan, and like she's a hero of mine, and I said she speaks out about Islam, and then he went and checked her out and text me back. I checked out that woman. She's a bigot. I was like, what? Like, how did you get that? Like, what? And then I find out the only people that will like play Ayan here is bloody Fox News. So she's associated with a lot of right-wing stuff here. And then I said to him, "Have you read her book?" Because I've read Infidel. Was that the first one? The first one.
Infidel.
And it blew me away. And I just was. I read it cover to cover, like in like 2 sittings. I loved it, and I said, "Can I buy you her? I don't think you'd think she was a bigot if I bought you her autobiography. Can I send you this?" He was like, "No, I wouldn't read it."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a.
I started like really thinking like, "Oh my God, am I on the wrong side of the fence here? No. Am I like this guy? I agree with everything." Like, and then I did a Google. I was like, somebody else must be talking about this, and I found your podcast.
Oh, really?
Like, I found the podcast because I came to the internet to try and be like, this is more than just a feeling that I have. There must be other people, and I wanted to find also, brown people talking. I mean, I've been, the Four Horsemen and Sam Harris, but like, I didn't think that would be good enough for my friend. He would just be like, well, it's more white people talking about brown religion, And so to find you guys and find Yasmin and Faisal and I listened to that first episode and was like, finally, like.
You were about to say thank God.
I tried.
Yeah, no, it's okay. You can thank God.
But Ali is looking. Ali, you're looking very brown today, so that's good.
Yeah, I wanted to say that this is. Armin, you're saying that, why can't we say it? We talked about this with Sam Harris also when he was on the podcast. We have an element of brown privilege here.
Yeah.
In this particular area, fair. It's a weird little oasis
bullshit.
Of brown privilege where we can say these things. And I remember telling Sam, I said, look, one thing I can do is, what about this approach of me relating to people who are Muslim, saying I grew up that way too. We have an identity together. Now let's lock down the identity connection. Now let's talk about ideas and sort of disarm them that way. And he correctly said, that's not scalable because you can do that, and I can't do that. And
that's bullshit.
And no, but it's not. That's your brown privilege speaking. It is really, really it is your brown privilege. Like it's really, really hard, right? To do that for someone who is white. And I have people who have come up to me all the time, and I mean this like privately, even the most lefty liberals, they'll say, even Obama, he did an interview with Jeffrey Goldberg right when he was about to leave office, and he said something like, he suggested that, the Islam needs a sort of a kind of reformation process like the Christianity went through, and then he also said that, I'm seeing in Indonesia, and he grew up in Indonesia, partly, he said that I grew up in Indonesia, and now I'm seeing that there are all these. There's increasing fundamentalism there, because more and more women are wearing the hijab. So people got really upset. They're like, oh, just because people are wearing hijab, you mean it's becoming fundamentalist? So he kind of gave it away a little bit, that he does think that when people wear hijab, that's a more fundamental, aggressive kind of thing.
Can I say something? I just think it's so bizarre that the group of people that used to be for civil rights and used to be that started movements that wanted to convince people that skin color doesn't matter.
Yes.
Are now the same. Now those are the group of people that are most obsessed with people's skin color.
Yeah.
It's like socialists are always obsessed with money, you know? It's like, oh, what about the money?
It's
so funny.
It is it's madness to me that, like, I don't want to go down the, like, why are we trying to find ways to separate everyone more? Like, wasn't the whole point that, like, we're just a human race and that we should have universal standards that apply to everyone?
Right.
The last people I thought that would be saying, no, we need special cases for certain people of certain skin colors was the left. That's, to me,
I mean, the fact that you had to come and check us because you were looking for people that are saying the same things, but not because they're not. I mean,
that's
it's
silly.
No, but a lot of people are doing it.
I mean, we're a podcast. It's just audio. For most people that check our content, it's just audio. Like, what?
But
it's just the content that matters. That nothing else should matter.
No, but a lot of people do that.
Maybe more are into who is saying it. Like, they would never. I mean, and God knows I am not a Trump supporter by any way. But if he did something good, if he actually did something that I agreed with, I wouldn't have a problem agreeing with him just because it's Trump. He's perfectly capable of doing good as well as it, but it's like there's a thing on the the left that they won't ever even say he could do anything good because it's him.
The black and white thinking.
It should not be about the person saying it. You should be judging the idea on the merit of the idea. It should be able to stand alone as a concept. It can't be okay if this person says it and not okay if this person says it.
Exactly.
That's bullshit.
It is.
Like,
Yeah, there's a
meaning depending on who's saying it.
Exactly.
Okay, so like
Nope.
Yeah, I absolutely despise Trump, and I think most people know that. But I did write an article praising his speech that he did in Saudi Arabia a couple of years ago. So I wrote it for HuffPost, and it was like, what Trump got right about his in Saudi Arabia, and I praised it, and I got so much flack, even though I always write against Trump, but I just wrote one thing
the tribalism of the left is really, really strong. They will turn on you, and I mean, that's the other thing, for me, being worried about speaking about this is, like, I don't feel like my side, I'm a lefty, basically, has any, that they would turn on me that's why I never said anything at school. I would they will turn on you, and then they get vicious and tribal, and, I mean, I'm not saying the right doesn't do that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Obviously the right does that, but they will willfully misrepresent my ideas to put me, instead of, like, trying to, like, retain me for the liberal side, they just want to dismiss me and throw me away to the right.
And the right is like, right is like so happy, like, okay, give us more recruits, this is great. Like, every time, like, especially the Generation Z people, when they are like, hey, I have some questions about this, I'm scared about it. Like, oh no, you're racist, or like, you belong to that tribe. So they're gonna, what do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna be like, okay, let me go find the tribe that they're telling me that I belong to. But just to be fair though, the right also is extremely tribal. The reason why we notice the tribalism on the left more is because I think we,
I'm in the left.
We're kind of
with the left. I don't even really know what shit the right are doing
to
each other.
I mean, if we were part of the right and we spoke out of line, you would get the same level of hostility. I don't know, depending which group you are in, right? But we don't notice it because we're getting pushed out of the left, or liberals, depending on different definitions, and we're noticing how tribal they are. But many groups are just tribal. Like, Christians are tribal, Muslims are tribal, Hindus are tribal. The right is tribal, the left is tribal.
Hell, I mean, atheists can be tribal. There's nothing stopping.
Yeah, atheists are. I mean, we know that.
They're tribal, and the way you could discourage tribalism is by constantly discussing your disagreements with each other.
Yes, and like I don't. She's still my hero, but there's some things I now disagree. I found out of it, you know, done more reading and stuff that I disagree with her on.
Right.
I'm not giving her up. I'm not saying
Yeah.
right. That's it. I found one thing I disagree with Iron Hersey Ali about. Therefore, she is no longer my hero. Her life story, her incredible work is
Right.
all reduced to nothing because I disagree with her on one thing.
Or
Since
many
when
things
did
even.
that become a thing
Right.
that we do? That
No,
you know.
I mean, I'm
It's
anti.
happening
One of
everywhere,
one of my main things is anti-reform, right? And Ian Hersey Ali's
Really?
book.
Armin, are you against the reform movement?
Okay, fine, I'll take that.
Sorry.
But that's Ian's main thing, right? Like recently, her book, the Heretic book, that was her main thing, right? And I'm very much against her latest book. I like her earlier books much better. But she's still my hero, and I love everything she, the other things she does, like she's still a hero to me, even though I'm very much against her reform position. You
Yeah.
could have those. You could be against some people's position and for some others at the same time. But if you're very tribal, no. If you step out of line, then you're out.
Well, it also
Yeah.
loses you elections because we're talking about the political aspect of it. That it loses you elections. I mean, Joe Biden recently went to a dinner for I think Republicans. I don't know if it was Republicans or not, but he was talking about Republicans and he was saying that Republicans are better than Trump, and once Trump is out of the way, then I think that I can work with Republicans because they know better. Right? That's all he said. And
Who
he
said
is
that?
being, huh?
Who
Joe
said?
Biden.
Oh,
Joe Biden said
Okay,
that,
okay.
and he is being absolutely slammed by Twitter left, which is only about 29% of all Democrats, fortunately. But in any case, he's being absolutely lambasted for it. So that's
Well, yeah, you're either in this camp or you're in this camp, and there is no middle ground. Well, it's just a lie because I think there are a lot of people on that middle ground. We just don't really have.
and they all talk about it privately.
Yeah.
Right.
They all come to. I mean, they'll come. There's people who've told me that I actually was with Armin. Armin and I did an event in Toronto, and then after that, there was this guy who came up to us. I mean, that I remember. At least he talked to me, and he said that I like the stuff you do. White guy. He's like, I like the stuff you do, but I can't post about it because I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to. And that's what the problem is. That's our brown privilege thing, because it's not just a matter of being shit on by your friends or being called a bigot by your family or a racist. It's also about these people, if they say something and they retweet or repost an article, something that I wrote or that Armin put up that has to do with, that's critical of Islam, I can get away with that in my work because it'll be like, he's from the community. But if that guy agrees with me and he posts it, then his coworkers could be like, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. So
I
that's
totally hijack your brown privilege to legitimize my views. I say, here's an Ali Rizvi article from HuffPost. See, it's not just me. Like, a brown person said this, so you can't say that, like, shouldn't be talking about it.
Oh, no.
I encourage that. I say at the same talk, and I say it everywhere. I tell people because almost inevitably some sort of white liberal will like I
discourage it.
Lefty. I used to be like a hold on one second. I used to be a squishy lefty sort of regressive type, and then I read your book or I heard your podcast or whatever, and now I get it, right? But I don't know how to support. How do I support? How do I do this as a white man? How do I do this as a white woman?
No.
And I tell them openly. I'm like,
just do it.
Refer to us. Go around and say, hey, listen, this guy's my friend. I'll tell them that I grew up showering with you. It doesn't matter.
Okay, can I respond to this? I tell them, no, don't use me. Tell them that this is my opinion, and if you need my skin to be brown for you to listen to me, then you're a fucking racist. All right?
Yeah.
Tell them that. Tell them that if you actually maybe refer them to Ali, and then if they agreeing, then call them out on the racism.
Yeah, because
but like, hey, I
shows.
was saying the same thing, and you didn't listen to me. Now a brown guy is saying it, and you're taking it seriously. You're a fucking racist. Just call them out.
Sure.
Yeah, because that's what it is. It's racism. If
Right.
it's not okay for me to say it, but it's okay for you to say it, then that's racism.
I mean, how is that not racism? How is that not racism?
It is, yeah. Anyway,
but
I wanted to.
But can I just mention like why I am optimistic? Like, I complain a lot and I shout a lot, but I'm actually optimistic, and I want to see what Sophia thinks about this, because what I look at to see that this whole woke cult thing, I think it's a temporary thing. I think traditionally, I have more problems with the right socially, not economically. More problems with the right than I have with the left. I think these problems with the left is new and will die. The reason why I'm hopeful is because I look at at least in the United States. The United States have went through something very similar to the woke cult during the Red Scare. And it was actually way worse than this. Like, if you look at people now being accused of being racist or Nazis or white supremacists, people used to be accused of being communists, left and right, just because they attended this meeting at some point, or there's a picture of them with somebody, or they just shook a hand of something, or they just said something in favor of unions at some point. All of a sudden, they're communists, right? So people were getting communist accusations all the time. They were losing their job. The government was even involved. The FBI was investigating people. And also the threat of communism was just like the threat of white supremacy in the West is being exaggerated, even though it's there, but it's like being exaggerated of how big of a problem that is. The threat of communism back then was being exaggerated. Like, now that historians look at it, the Soviet Union was never in a position to destroy United States at that point, but people were thinking that it could happen any day. And another similarity between the Red Scare and what's happening right now is that the actual spies, the communist spies, benefited from the Red Scare because their accusations were spreading so much that it was really easy to get under the radar and not get noticed. So, just like the over accusations of racism and white supremacy is actually benefiting the white supremacists right now, because now if you accuse somebody of white supremacy, you're like, well, everybody is a white supremacist these days. And that was actually a lot worse, because now we have people getting kicked off social media or being deplatformed. We had people going to court back then because of these accusations. So, and now we look, it was a short thing, it happened, we look back at it, we were like, we know, like, that was ridiculous. And the United States came from that stronger than, everybody can tell that's ridiculous. So I'm thinking, like, this is not something that will last, I think, this whole woke movement. What do you think?
Well, it's like going to implode itself, isn't it? Because it's kind of, it's going to eat itself, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And yes, I think it's unsustainable, because when genuinely tolerant people come into contact with genuinely intolerant people, that we've reached an impasse where you can't just kind of brush over it. But yeah, I mean, nobody's going to court about well, or
not
maybe
yet.
Not yet. It's not yet. And hopefully there are enough people making enough noises. People like the random head of a Birmingham school who just said, "No, I'm not putting up with this. No,
right.
You will not tell me what I can teach these kids. I'm not teaching them anything inappropriate, and I won't be bullied." And if I've got to hope that, like, more information and we get more clarity on this issue, that people will feel more sure of being able to take a stand, like the head, and know that that this whole thing is just a descent into madness.
Right. And I think it's peaked. I think I'm hoping that this is the worst of it. I think that we're gonna go down from now on.
Yeah, I actually agree with both of you. I think that this thing with homophobia, in homophobia in Muslim communities, this is going to be, the crux of it. This is where, people will be able to choose. It'll be the wake-up call for a lot of liberals. It already is.
Right.
And it's a big issue. So I think that's what it's a shame that it didn't happen with the other issues, with all the oppression of women and girls and everything. Like, seems like that's all okay. FGM is okay. Because it's their culture. Because
the fundamentalists are bringing this up. They really hate gays. I mean, they hate women, but they can't really. It's half the population, and we've got a lot of rights now. But they really hate gays, and they've brought it's in a way it's brilliant. They've brought this all into their opening up the world. Come look at what bigots and homophobes we are. We're going to show you. You know, that's what we want. We want people to see that and be like, I want nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's not, Muslim people to stand up and say, this guy doesn't speak for us. We're fine. Tell people about, some people have two mummies and some people have two daddies. That's fine. We're still a Muslim, and we could, like.
Yeah.
I feel like he's shining a light on it, and it's going to backfire. I hope.
Yeah, there's. Yeah, go on. Go on,
So we talked about recruiting from the left. This is why what Ali said, I think it's one thing we need to take to the right as well, right? Because there are some people, the right is not, like we have a lot of people on the right that they just discuss it by anything LGBT. But they have also a lot of people on the right that LGBT doesn't, they don't care, like it's fine, but they're more concerned about Islam. And I think with the people on the right, that care more about Islam, we could go to them and be like, listen, you support LGBT. This is the weapon against Islam. Like we should be like the war against Islam. The front line should be the LGBT.
It's the gays.
It's the gays. Yeah, we should be. This should be charging with the gays at the front. This is how you win the war against Islam.
Yeah.
And again, I think people like Jimmy Bangash
Right.
they're going to be at the forefront of this.
I was so moved by how he spoke on your podcast. So moved.
Oh, he's amazing. And he speaks like that everywhere he goes. That's how he does. He just really moves people.
Yeah, and he, I get emotive and shout and like move. I really like that. He stayed so like calm all the way through, and this isn't about a hysterical debate. There's an element. He kept it real serious. I was very, very impressed, and I hope that more voices like that. That's who we need to hear from.
Yeah.
And then there was like a guy from Glasgow, I think, that went to Birmingham to talk about being a gay Muslim, and like if what this does is actually exposes. Also, somebody wrote a brilliant thing, and it said it was on the comments of a Facebook thing about Shaquille, and it said that something like, if you think there's no gays in the Islamic community, you really need to get outside Pulse nightclub at about 4 a.m. on a Saturday night. Like, and I hope that that's true, that there are lots of gay Muslims that this protest will actually empower rather than
Yeah,
and especially
absolutely.
if the law comes down behind us, says no, no.
I'm hoping
hopefully that will help.
I'm hoping we get a lot of gay Muslims to become ex-Muslims. The more they realize how like a lot of gay Muslims are like, maybe I keep my religion and be gay at the same time. And the more we see stuff like this, the more gay Muslim are like, fuck this, I'm out. So so I'm hoping more gay Muslims that realize how don't tolerate a religion that is so against you, right? So
it's
against
interesting
everything you are.
that this is an issue that people have not, we don't, oh God, Islamic homophobia, this is so difficult, that the left is like, just, I won't even talk about, we're not even going to, this doesn't happen, and then they've brought this to our doorstep. They're like, no, we really do think this. We really do hate gays, and we don't want you to teach them. And it's like that thing, like that Sam Harris, what jihadists really want, like, and the left keeps saying, no, you don't want that. No, you don't. That's no, you just imperialism.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same with the gays. No, Muslim homophobia doesn't exist. And eventually, people like this guy are like getting 200, and it is mostly men, to go and stand outside a school because they're hysterical about homophobia.
Yes.
Like,
homophobia only
great
exists in
because
Muslim
they're
communities.
exposing themselves. They're exposing themselves. Yeah.
Only exists in Muslim communities because of U.S. foreign policy. We just want to know, because like all of that bombing of Muslim countries, all that did was make them hate gays more.
But
that's why it exists. But
Ian mentioned that I love Sophia's compassion and passion on this topic.
Yeah,
I've been trying not to get too emotive and be.
You should.
No, you should. You're amazing, actually.
When Jimmy came and he spoke about it, I mean, I'm getting the same kind of thing from when you really, really articulate and when you say what you want out of passion. I mean, it's very, very powerful.
No,
thank you for giving me this opportunity, because I've literally never spoke about this in a way like this before.
I love it because
I've
it feels like it's all coming out now.
Yeah.
I love that.
You should have your own podcast.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about, because the time is like whizzing by. I wish we had more time, but
ask James question as well at some point. Yeah.
Sure. No, we will. We're definitely going to ask all the patron questions. So you are, you grew up in this. You went to this Muslim school. You have taught Muslim students. You've lived in Birmingham among a Muslim community. the UK Muslim community versus the US Muslim community. Now you're in Austin. Austin, it's a very sort of liberal state. Texas does have a lot of, a large Muslim population
Good
as
question,
well.
Ali.
Yeah, I'm coming to it.
Good. No, it's a good thing you're doing. Yeah.
So it's just a little bit of background for everybody. Yeah, but I think, first of all, do you have Muslim friends or other friends that you may even have made through this podcast? Growing up, did you in school? And what were those relationships like? And what do you think of the difference between the Muslim communities in the UK and the US?
Okay, so growing up, the school was kind of, the white kids stuck together, the black kids stuck together, the Islamic kids stuck together. It kind of, but I didn't really have Muslim friends outside of school. I had lots of Muslim friends in school, but I didn't really see any of them outside of school. But then most of my outside of school activities were music, were guitar ensemble and guitar stuff. But I certainly had lots of Muslim friends in school of varying degrees of religious, some of them, observant but not really even practicing, and then to the hijabi girls who are like, no, I'm not even going to bother doing any work because my family is going to take me out of school anyway. This is just a joke. I did know a lot of people. We had a very dear friend of mine, Faisal, played bass in one of my bands for a while, and I know that he has faced some, he is one person, I hope he listens to this, because he knows I'm a fierce atheist, and he knows also that I've got no, I'm not a racist. He knows we're friends, but since being here, I don't know if I've met any Muslim people. But then I play country music in honky tonks and dive bars most of the time. So I haven't met. I did go to I went to actually see. His name's just gone out. Mohammed Syed spoke in Austin, and I went to see him speak. And there was considering that everybody I know in this city is a liberal, and all my musical friends pretty much, there was 20 people at that talk, and no, I didn't recognize a single one of them. So I don't know, particularly in Austin, how big I don't even know where the nearest mosque is to me here, so I don't know. But I'm actually friends with Tanya
Joya.
Because she lives in
Oh, really?
Dallas.
She lives north of me, and I made friends with her after hearing her, and I contacted, just said, just another Brit in Texas, and so her and my people I've found through your podcast. I have not met people in Austin. I've not really, but then I don't move in those circles really. But in terms of the difference, I know that people here are. A lot of people here I just don't think have very much experience with I grew up surrounded by Islam, and I mean, God, the thing I miss most about England is Indian food, is being able to just get good curry. I'm a Birmingham girl, I come from this mixed place, and people here I just don't think come from that. They're just not exposed to it in the same way. And then from what my conversation with Mohammed Syed about it, he says that there's just much it's not as fundamental here. That what I was seeing in Birmingham, and with whole classes of little girls age 7 and 8 all wearing a hijab, and that isn't that it's more extreme in England. And I would certainly, I'm not coming into contact with Islam on a daily basis, but now I'm seeking it out and going on my computer and thinking about it that way. But I definitely
keep us updated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, you should. And I'm so glad that you're taking the initiative to do this. And here, I have to say that I don't know if this is a racist thing or a cultural thing, but yeah, I actually really like country music. Right? So,
Good.
And the way that I got into it, so I am a rarity because I know my wife hates it. Everybody else around me, all the brown people, they're like, "Oh, I like everything." First, before it was everything except for rap and country. Now it's like everything except for country. And the thing is, when I was in high school, I was in Riyadh where the first Gulf War happened, 1991. So the U.S. troops came and set it up, and they didn't have any music stations on the radio, right? Saudi Arabia, but they set up a radio station for all the U.S. soldiers. So they had they used to play. It was just one station that used to play all kinds of music all the time. So I used to listen to Headbangers sing, the heavy metal stuff late at night. But throughout the afternoon, they played country music, and I got into a lot of it, like Bronnie Millsap, and like there's just a whole bunch of different things. Like this was back in the '90s. So
but that's fun. The reason I play country music is because of my dad, and my dad grew up on a German Air Force base, or was there during his teenage years, and they had American Forces Network radio. It's basically the American troops are brainwashing us all with their
American
music.
Colonialism.
It's colonialism.
It's like the Arabs spread everything. They use Islam to go and to carry that. The American soldiers are doing it through country music. Holy
country
shit!
Music. Yeah.
What a revelation.
Patron question.
Yeah, but I was just saying that may be one of the reasons you're not meeting a lot of the Muslim community outside of the thing too. All right, so patron questions. All right, so first of all, Ian Foote has a comment. He said, "I think the younger side of the right is significantly more accepting of LGBT than the older side. So young conservatives." You're right. Like they've got the log cabin Republicans. A lot of these sort of young, the Milo Yiannopoulos. Everybody was really. A lot of young conservatives, you riled up a lot of them.
Trans is the new gay rights movement.
Yeah.
So that battle was lost. Everybody is accepting of gays now. So now they are moving to the next frontier.
And I got to say one thing here. So eventually what happens is that younger conservatives pretty much always accept the changes that the older liberals fought for. Somehow it always happens. It happened with women. It happened with civil rights. I mean, even though both Democrats, the conservatives and liberals both had issues with it. Well, not conservatives and liberals.
By the way,
Democrats and Republicans. And then now with gay rights, it's much more accepted in the young Republicans, the future conservative parties around the world. And but now the trans thing is the next one.
But yeah, I just have to correct myself because somebody's going to pick up on this and it's really going to hate on me. No, not everybody is accepting of gays. I realize that. I was just exaggerating. I'm just saying there's been made a lot of progress on that front. Of course, homophobia is even in the West is still a huge problem. And still we need to fight on that. We need to still do a lot.
Did you hear about those two women on the tube?
Exactly.
But it isn't the fight that it used to be.
Yes.
Same with feminism, isn't it? I mean, like, I don't know. Feminism's gone a bit crazy. I mean, for me personally, I don't know but it's still, it's from a genuine need. I am underestimated all the time. People look at me, they don't see a guitar player. They don't. I walk into all my gigs and I'm patronized by the sound man about whether or not I'll be able to operate my own bloody equipment because there's like but am I out on the streets fighting for fundamental, well, actually they're doing their best, aren't they, with the abortion and everything, but it's I totally agree that gay, we still have to fight these fights for underrepresented, but I feel like the ex-Muslim movement is the next. I think that is gonna. It has to break open, and people need to. I mean, I don't understand. Well, yes, because of where I came from, but I seem really hip to this issue, and I keep trying to tell everybody else you don't understand. A revolution is coming. I hope. I hope so.
Well, you should be our spokesperson. This is great.
Yeah, I think in the ex-Muslim community, especially the free thinkers from the Muslim world, the women and the LGBT members of this community are going to be absolutely forefront, and I think this should be too. I think that's going to help a lot. It's a little identity politics, I know, but whatever.
But as you said in a previous podcast I was just listening to, identity politics comes from truth, doesn't it? It comes from that. It's kind of what I'm saying. I don't want to go down that route, but when we're at a point where we know that if you don't get sunlight on your skin, you will get vitamin D deficiency, and you could get rickets. And rickets is actually resurging in England amongst like when it gets to a point where there's like a fundamental, like, this is infringing on a human right and a basic need or whatever that's going to inflict suffering. You just something's got to be said. Like, and that I come from that as not even as an atheist, just as a person that supports women's health. Don't wrap women up so that their skin can't see any sunlight. I don't care what the reason is, you know.
But identity politics is not always wrong. Identity politics is wrong when you ask for privileges because of your identity. Identity politics is not wrong when you're telling people that
exceptional privileges.
Just one second.
Yeah.
Identity politics is not wrong when you're telling people that my identity is being targeted. Please protect me. Like, if you are a Jew under Nazi Germany and you go knock on someone's door and you're like, hey, Nazis are trying to kill me, please hide me. I'm a Jew, please hide me in your basement. And they say, like, why are you playing identity politics? I don't care. I don't care. You're a Jew. Who? Of course, it matters at that point that you're a Jew. Okay. So
well, and I just pulled the card, didn't I? I'm a female guitar player. I've got like my, you know, it all comes from actual truth.
The identity politics is all around. It's on both sides. You've got one side screaming about European heritage and Judeo-Christian this and that, and on the other side, they're all all obsessed with it. They're all denying it.
If I'm on a helicopter and I'm landing in ISIS territory and I have only one spot left, right? And there's two people come to the helicopter. I have one spot left, and one of them is a Sunni man, and the other one is a Yazidi woman. I'm going to let the Yazidi woman in. Okay, because she's more likely to be in danger in ISIS territory than the Sunni man. Okay, I'm going to play the identity politics game in that situation.
That was a terrifying hypothetical. Hey, helicopter manufacturers, please get your game up. There's I mean,
we need more seats.
A lot of things that we settled. A lot of things that were settled ages ago, like, you know, equality for women, reproductive rights, all this. Alabama, like, you know, the abortion law over there, no exceptions for rape. When you have no exceptions for rape, right? That's how you get Don Jr. and Ivanka. Okay. Anyway, the point is that you have there's all of this stuff. We're regressing, going backwards, and all these things that we had settled decades ago are now becoming controversies and debates. It's just, so it's happening everywhere. And we should not deny it that it's actually happening in the Muslim community as well.
James's question.
Called it out everywhere else, then we should call it out here too. Okay, so next one from Kieran Evans.
No, James had a question before. He said, "What?" Then Kieran Evans is after.
Yes.
James is saying, for Sophia, what should schools and the government do about this issue?
Yeah, I don't pretend to have a particularly good answer for that, but I do think that I think we should be supporting head teachers and supporting not allowing parents to bully schools into anything. Basically, I think that. And I'm glad that it feels like it is going in that direction. I mean, it was interesting that that lawyer Nazir Afzal said he was going to be an intermediary, and that he would talk between the parents and the school. That I know the head has said she doesn't want a big town hall type meeting with all that, like an angry mob and her having to defend us. She'll deal with them one-on-one. I mean, I don't know if there is an easy solution, but I feel like we should be supporting the school. I mean, allow them to protest. That's fine, but we should double down on no. This is the national curriculum is the national curriculum, and it's part of the curriculum that we teach equality, and that's all that's being taught here. I think there should be a clarification about the issue get the information out that this was never about teaching kids about gay sex, because that has been propagated and that is a lie. There is no school in Birmingham teaching children about gay sex. They're teaching them about equality, and I think the government and the schools should double down on sticking to equality. That's what we're teaching, is equality, and I think that that the other things that people on the left should start talking about it. That's what I think is that we should not only allow the voices that come out of this to be people like Katie Hopkins. Not people who are liberal people need to talk about this too, and to put their money where their mouth and stop being afraid, like being afraid of the smear.
Yeah, and if we allow people like
Easier
Katie
said
Hopkins,
than done, I know.
yeah, if we allow people like Katie Hopkins, who's like genuinely an anti-Muslim bigot, if we allow her to take charge of this conversation, and then but I mean, luckily she's on the other side now. Thank God. The second time we're thanking God in this podcast tonight. But if we allow them to take the narrative, there's a void that we've left. If we don't address this, if liberals and lefties don't address this from a position of moral, from a position of morality and a way of and responsibly, then there's going to be a void where these sort of ill-meaning characters in the far right they're going to address it through xenophobia and bigotry. That's how it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
The question from the next question is actually very interesting because I have an opinion on that, but I'm going to wait for Sophia to answer it first.
Yeah. Kieran Evans?
Yes.
Yeah. So Sophia, did you see the guy outside the school that said that women were divinely created for men's pleasure? I remember that clip. Any thoughts? So just background. Yes, there was a clip. They got some of these protesters, these Muslim parents outside this primary school protesting the LGBT education, whatever. And one of the guys said that, no, this is wrong. It's like women are created by Allah for men's pleasure. And that's exactly what he said. I feel like this is going to be a short answer, but any thoughts on that?
I mean, I haven't seen that, but I mean, that's talking about the over-sexualization of children, and then somebody says that, like, what? I just think, like, where do you even go from there? Like it's a women's rights nightmare. What, how can and did anybody pick him up on it? And like that I mean, that's just such a no agency, no nothing. We're just here to pleasure men. I mean, I don't even know what. That's such a crazy attitude. Like, and where are my feminist sisters going? What? You can't say that. You can't say that. I don't care if you're brown. You can't say that.
Well, to be fair, that got.
I can challenge you if you say it. Not that you can say what you like, but you know what I mean.
Okay, I have an opinion on this because, to be fair, that got a lot of reactions. A lot of that video got a lot of people were pissed that this man is saying that. That woman. For me, it's very strange that got a huge reaction because that's in the Quran. I mean, that's in the Quran. I don't understand why. Like that book, the Quran is being printed, and if I say like, hey, the Quran says that women are made for men's pleasure, for like fields to be able to spread their season. That's the whole. And men, the Quran says that men have authority over women, and they can beat them. Not that they can beat them, that they should beat them when they're not when they are disobedient. When you fear disobedience. Like, but this guy what he's saying is nothing compared to the Quran. So why is there so much outrage over what this Muslim guy said in the street, and nothing over a book that is circulated all over the United Kingdom and people are teaching it in mosques and people are reading it? No outrage over that at all?
Because deep inside, they all know it's bullshit. Deep inside, I'm telling you. There's over
but
here
also,
too.
I feel like either they know it's bullshit and they're avoiding it, or they genuinely don't actually know. Like you've said, a lot of people don't actually know what's in there.
No, I'll tell you why I think that deep inside, they don't even know this themselves, but they know it's bullshit. And here's why I think that, because you have the same thing that happens over here with the Christian fundamentalists.
The Muslims, they know. They don't. I don't think they think it's bullshit.
No. Well, a lot of Muslims know, but here's the thing. Even with the Christians over here, some guy will come out and say that, homosexuality is a sin and, gay marriage should not be allowed, like Mike Pence. And everybody comes out and they say, can you believe he said this? He said, or they'll come out and they say, well, according to the Bible, it's supposed to be between a man and a woman and homosexuality is a sin. It'll be the headlines. This is what he said. He's quoting the Bible to justify his homophobia. But they're right. It does say that in the Bible. Right. They know it. So why aren't they calling it out in the Bible? Why are they calling out when some guy just quotes the Bible verbatim
right? Or in this case, quotes the Quran virtually verbatim. Why are they calling that out? Is because deep inside they know that they can't attack the book. They know that the book is just as bullshit as the guy, but they're going to attack the guy because he's an easy target. They're not going to attack the book because that's not proper. But they know it's bullshit. Like they at some level they can justify, they can do mental gymnastics.
It doesn't matter if the thing is bullshit. The fact that are you talking about the leftists that they know it's bullshit?
No, both sides, man. Everybody does this.
I don't care what this is what I don't. It doesn't matter if they know it's bullshit or not. They're tolerating a book that they would not tolerate if just a random person in the street said it.
Yeah.
Exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly my point.
Right. You can't say that. Oh my god! And then it's just in. Yeah, I mean these books are full of absolutely the worst. Like, never mind as a guide to morality. Like, the stuff that's in these books is just about the worst advice you could have slaves.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Islam.
It's just terrible.
The Quran and the Hadith would not be able to survive 1% of the left's cancel culture on deplatforming and censorship, the censorship that they want. Islam, none of the Quran and the Hadith, even if you do 1% of what the left wants, the Islam would not survive that. Like, Islam would be, the standards that a lot of people on the left have will will ban Islam. You would have to ban Islam.
Speech. As soon as you pass a law on hate speech, well, the first things that absolutely have to go is the Bible and the Quran and the Torah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
They're full of it. It's like I saw this meme.
Dead weight. Goodbye.
There's this meme about someone's asking God, "Hey, God, why didn't you put 'don't rape' in the 10 Commandments?" And God's like, well, I only had 10 spots. And he's like, well, 3 of the commandments are literally about you. They're just about worshiping.
By the way, Jan in the live set, she's saying people don't know what's in the Quran, and then she corrected herself, saying, I mean, non-Muslims. I see. Actually, Jan, no, your first comment was correct. Muslims even don't know what's in the Quran.
Well, isn't that what Sarah Hayder said? And a lot of atheists I hear on your show, they start off saying it doesn't say that, my religion doesn't. And then the more they look into it, they're like, oh bloody hell, it totally says that and worse.
Yeah.
And then left with no, the more. But it's just the more you shine a light on something, and that's, I hope this is happening with this crazy situation at this school. That the more you shine a light on something, the harder it becomes to keep the bullshit up. The further you scrutinize it. So let's scrutinize it.
Let's do one last question from James, right, Ali?
There's there's 2 more. I think there's one from Jan. Okay, well, I don't know. Okay. So James is saying, what are your thoughts on the current state of the Labour Party in the UK?
Me, I definitely am not a fan of Corbyn, and I feel like he's not real. I don't know. I guess I've become a little because I live here now. Although I have just finally got my paperwork so I can now post or vote in the UK. But I definitely feel like I can't really get behind Corbyn, and I'm from a Labour voting household, my whole life. But I read something, and I don't know whether it's scaremongering about him, about women-only carriages in trains, and it made me nearly lose my mind at the idea that somebody floated an idea in the Labour Party of a regressive idea. I hope I'm not saying anything, but somebody in the Labour Party floated an idea about there being women-only carriages on trains so that women could, get some peace and not be sexually harassed. And to me, I was just like, what? What do you mean? Stop the people doing the sexual harassing. Don't put me in a...
very Islamic of them.
Kind of, but that and then I read some
I think everybody's becoming Islamic. Katie Hopkins and Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
It's just Islam. It's working. Whatever the hell they're doing, all of these guys are concerned that Islam will become because they're taking over. It is taking over. It's taking over Katie Hopkins. It's taking over the Labour Party that wants to segregate women on trains.
Jihad to have got Katie Hopkins is really stealthy. We've got to give it to the jihadists there.
It is stealthy.
This is not a this is seriously not a joke. I listen to a lot of ethno-nationalist content just to see what what they are. They are falling in love with Islam. They love their family values. They love how, they back each other up.
Well, it is a better alliance. The alliance with the left is just so incongruous and wrong. Like, yeah, they should all get into bed together. It's just right. It's all that, like you said, it's just all right wing. It's the same right wing stuff that oppresses women, and it.
Right.
Let them. I hope they do. That makes more sense to me. Leave the left alone.
And they also have the same kind of terminology for things that they don't like. Like for what Muslims call haram, the alt-right calls degenerate. Right. The things that they don't like is also very similar. But historically, even though the alt-right, the conservative right and Islam has a lot of similarity, historically it's always been the left that has been allied with them. Like if you even look at, for example, in Iran, during the Islamic Revolution.
Still there, sorry.
Oh, what?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
Sorry, you got cut off for a second.
A call came through on my phone, it cut, but we're back.
Yeah, like if you look in Iran and in Iraq, I recently went to Palestine. They had communist signs everywhere. In Iran, for example, the 1979 Islamic Revolution was done by the unity between the Islamic, radicals and the communists. The MEK is a terrorist organization, terrorist cult that is a mix of Islam and communism. Like in Iraq, also a lot of I don't understand what is this. Why is two ideologies that have nothing to do with each other always end up uniting?
I know.
It's so weird. Yeah,
it's
okay.
Amazing. So last question. Sorry, guys. I mean, this has been.
I feel like he gave a rubbish answer about the Labour Party. I don't really know. I know I'm not mad keen on Corbyn, and I don't know what I'd be doing.
I thought it was a very good answer.
No, it's good when you tell people that. I think a lot of people try to answer things that they don't know about, but if you just this is all I know and this is all I could judge by, I think those are the most honest answers, and I think they are the best. People are not courageous enough to tell people hey, this is all I know about this. They always think they have to act like they're knowledgeable about something, but you don't do that. And I think that's the best position to have.
That was the first thing, the philosophy book that my dad gave me when I started. On the cover was written, "Wisest is she who knows she does not know." And like when you don't know, the best thing is not to just make up a load of bullshit.
Right.
To go and find out, learn more, ask questions. And
exactly.
I definitely kind of that's like a guiding principle for me.
Yeah,
I don't know about it. I'm not going to lie.
Good. Yeah.
I'd rather have no answer than a bad answer. Same as religion. I'd rather have I don't know. I haven't got anything in place of it, but I just know that that's nonsense.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So Jan is asking, Jan Skelton, how did the Muslim girls
Hey,
who
Jan,
knew?
she's my Facebook friend. It's really.
Oh yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
what about me? Now I'm jealous.
Well, you're my friend, so you probably are.
Okay.
So so she's saying, how did the Muslim girls who knew they would have an arranged marriage to their cousin in Pakistan feel about that? Did they express any rebellious thoughts, or did they just accept their fate?
There was a lot of acceptance. There was a worn down kind of acceptance. And
acceptance or resignation?
Yeah, resignation's a better word, definitely. Just like there is no way to fight this. This is unstoppable. This is inevitable, and it's just what's going to happen. And I think that's what got to me, because that seems so obviously not as good as the life that I was living. It's like, why aren't and you're not even angry about it. You're just
indifferent. Yeah, that is actually the most disturbing part of it.
It's terrifying. They just resigned to, in 1993 in the West, they were just resigned that all their rights to education, to live the life they lead, had just been taken away from them, and they weren't okay with it, but they just accepted there was just bugger all they could do about it.
I really wish I was that. I was in the position of that Muslim girl where the father said that the prostitutes, that guitar players are prostitutes. I would really wish I was her for a moment. Wow, that's pretty impressive. for these prostitutes. Like, I'm really glad. Like, who are all these prostitutes that are going and learning the guitar? Like, I'm really glad for them.
This whole time, and I didn't know. I haven't been using that part of my skill set. You know, I didn't. I mean, and what did that make me? She brought the guitar back to me. Am I like the pimp, like training all this army of young girls to go out?
No,
and be
I mean,
so weird.
who's against prostitutes having a side hobby and learning how to play the guitar? Like, what's wrong with that?
They already have a pretty hard life. Let them play the guitar if they want to. You know?
I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Anyways, that was that the last question?
Yeah. Oh, hopefully one day this is going to be it'll be a compliment to prostitutes. I think there is another. No, I think that's it. So yeah, everything's good. Sophia, by the way, I did hear some of your music. You're a very, very good guitar player.
Oh, so, thank you very much.
Yeah, if I ever need guitar lessons for my daughter, and I'm definitely not good enough yet. I'm 44 to
I do
teach
Skype
her.
guitar lessons. I will do
you
Skype
do?
guitar lessons. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh, where can
and now
people
I have
find
this
you?
fancy new headset, so I can.
Where
Yeah.
can people hire you for? Like, are you looking for more gigs?
Yeah, I mean, I play all the time, all around Austin. I'm happy. My social media stuff is SJ Music ATX. That's my my Facebook. Sophia Johnson Music.com is my website. I play all around. Yeah, if you need some backing vocals and some lead guitar playing, I'm your girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to teach your kids how to play the guitar over Skype, also, right? So reach out to you as well. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but guys, people in the secular community, we need to support each other. This is something that the religious people have managed to really do, and a lot of people, when they leave religious communities, they don't feel like there's that much support for them anymore. So to the credit of Muslims and Christians and Jews and Hindus, this is something they do right. They look after each other. So in the secular community, we need to be able to replace that for people that don't have that support. So if you are if you are looking for something a gig like that, like go hire Sophia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is can you guys hear this?
Small. I'll play anywhere.
No hall is too small. Okay, that's good.
Can you guys hear this at all?
No.
No.
Are you gonna play something? Please don't.
Oh, don't play my music. Is that what you're doing?
No, don't do that. It's gonna be copyrighted or something. Like I'm gonna have
to. No copyright. But so we're gonna put up all the links to it. You have a really, really good voice. So I'm watching the video. That's a Hollywood review. The 6th you performed over there with the band. Yeah, it's really good. It actually doesn't sound like.
Wait, do you write your own songs?
That's kind of Western swing. Yeah, I do write my own songs.
Can you write something about the secular movement or ex-Muslim?
It's actually because I'm so passionate about it. It's something I have been trying to do for a long time. If I ever make any progress with actually writing like a good protest song, I will definitely send it to you guys.
I'll work with you on it. I have a few ideas.
No, don't let Ali will ruin it. No,
yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, Sophia, it's been a pleasure, and thank you. I think you're a very good speaker. When you speak out passionately, it's very powerful.
I felt a little bit like my points were coming out all jumbled. I feel like maybe I should have.
Our best guests always say that. What's up with that?
All of
our best guests keep we had if they come after and I think I didn't come through, the ones that we enjoyed the most. No, you were amazing. This was great. Your passion just shows, and it's just wonderful.
And we haven't had this in this context, all of the elements to this, not just the LGBT protest, the Muslim homophobia, how to deal with that, the lefty-righty thing, the regressive left thing, the differences between the communities, all of these topics. How do white atheists discuss this? All of these topics are so relevant. We haven't really had a show where we discussed all of that with somebody who's been in your position with your experiences. Right. So, I mean, I think that this was a very, very important episode.
Jen thank you.
Yeah, go on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was it. Just thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jen is saying thanks. Jen is saying thanks, guys, and Sophia, you are fantastic, and thanks for speaking out.
Thank you, Jan.
Kira Kieran Evans is saying, yeah, thanks, Sophia. Hopeful, hugely enjoyable discussion. Mike is saying, thank you, live long and prosper. And Shantaram is saying, thank you, Sophia, so informative.
Thank you so much.
no.
I'm definitely, as a first foray into actually doing, speaking about this. Oh, look, Ali's getting a guitar out now. Oh, my goodness, what were you in for?
Okay, we're done, guys. Let's go. Oh no.
No, I saw that Telecaster hanging on your wall in the back, so I was gonna show you this one. It's a little dusty.
Oh.
Nice.
There you go. That's the Telecaster.
It's not a racist question. Is it an American one?
Yeah, it's made in the USA.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Trump would love this.
Wait, is
Yeah,
that an
there you go.
anti-British racist comment?
Huh?
Is that anti-British thing to say like?
Well,
Yeah.
they're made in different places, and the Mexican ones and the Korean ones. Everybody wants an American-made one.
Okay.
It probably is racist, isn't it? There we go.
No, it's not. I was just kidding. Of course, it's better if it's American.
No, this is American made.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
American made, and it was expensive too, like really, really expensive.
Right.
So I actually rented this thing, and then I just rented it for a couple of months to record an EP, and then after that I liked it so much I didn't want to give it back, so I just went out and I bought it up. So it's just got a beautiful
I'm
sound.
fully in support of people owning multiple guitars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
I
for
love
the
it.
people that are
Yeah.
listening and not watching this, she has a lot of guitars in the background. And if you're not, if you're listening to this, it's because you're not a patron. Because if you're a patron, you will be watching this. So please become a patron. A link is in the description, and join us live or watch.
Smooth. That was real smooth.
Very smooth.
Yeah, so our patrons
Yeah.
get to access the video discussions instead of just the audio, right? So huge incentive.
Yeah.
But some people are just patrons just because they want to support the show. They don't care what version they get. So thank you to that as
Yeah,
well.
I'm a patron and I listen a lot in my car. So I'm not watching. But I've been a patron for a while now. You should do it. Everyone, go do it. Support the good work that's being done here.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
Sophia.
Thank you. All right, I'm
So,
going to stop streaming.
That was great. Anyway, so we're gonna stop. We'll see you guys next time.
See you
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye.